As the meta has been developing, there's one hero that has risen to be the most dominant hero, period, and the most impactful hero you can play, and that's Magneto. This character is extremely good against triple support, counters so many different ults and compositions, and is the best solo tank, period. So we gotta break down everything you need to know about this hero, from tips and tricks on every one of his abilities to the advanced stuff you need to dominate in this meta. There's a lot we're gonna cover, so make sure you smash that like, subscribe, strap in, let's get into the video. Now, first off, we have to talk about his primary and his alternate. His primary being Iron Valley, 25 max range, and it does 35 direct damage and 40 spell-based damage at the center. So if you hit someone directly, it's going to do 75 damage. Now, that spell damage is going to have a radius of 2 meters, and at the max radius, it's only going to do 50% of this damage, so instead of 75, you're only going to be doing 55. That's really notable and adds up. That's why hitting someone directly, even from far ranges, is going to apply more pressure and whittle them down more, and it's one of the reasons why, like, an okay Magneto is going to do overall less damage than a great Magneto with great accuracy. Now, his alternate mag cannon, there's going to be visible rings on his back, plus the little icon in front of your character, and this is going to charge, and at different charges, your alternate fire is going to do different amounts of damage. First off is 40, then 65, then 90 damage, but you need at least one charge to activate, so if you have less than one charge, it's not going to spit out anything. But if you do have all three, the full charge, it's actually going to do that 90 plus a 6 meters knockback. This is super effective at creating separation between you and a front line, CCing someone in the back line like a support potentially and just killing them outright, or denying someone from diving your team, catching them when they're off guard. Now, the combination of hitting someone directly with your primary, 75 damage, plus 3 charges and the knockback, 90, gives you a window of time to hit them again with the primary afterwards, for another 75 being 240, a massive amount of burst out of nowhere. This is why this character can be extremely lethal, and if people don't respect you, just bursting them out of nowhere in the mid-fight can be a way that you just generate a pick, and that's very DPS-like on a tank that has tons of survivability, mitigation. I mean, you just can do so much on this character. We're just getting started. Now, his next ability is the Metal Bulwark. Now, there's going to be the applied and the self. So it's going to be on a 12-second cooldown, and it's something that you're going to actually throw onto your teammates to shield them or throw onto yourself to shield you. This can protect your team from giant amounts of damage, crowd control, or pretty much anything that would hurt them or you, and it's super powerful in that regard. Plus, every 100 damage it takes is going to get you a ring. So this means that your alternate fire, the crowd control mag cannon, is going to be generated. So you could potentially alternate fire someone for 90 and knock them back, bubble yourself, get 3 charges back if they do 300 damage, and then you can hit them again with the mag cannon. So doing this right also increases your overall damage, gives you an extra bit of crowd control, and is something that can protect you or your team from any different random situations. Now, how you use this is going to be really important, because while it can be used to protect yourself and give you more damage, that's not always the best use case for it, because protecting your teammates when they're getting doped, protecting your divers when they're getting aggressive, or using it in a key moment to deny a specific ultimate can be amazing. Like, sure, you could alternate fire the front line, get a charge again with the self bubble and alternate fire the front line, but imagine if the Doctor Strange has an ultimate, and he pops an ultimate on your team, and you can actually protect your support with a bubble that has the defensive ult, so he focuses that, you deny it, they pop defensive ult, and you win that fight. I would definitely evaluate how you're using this, because there's often more valuable situations where you could use it rather than just perma-bubbling yourself or increasing your damage slightly. If it can help you generate a kill, that's good, but not just random extra slight pressure. There's more valuable uses for it. Now, the next ability we got to talk about is the Metallic Curtain. This is going to be on a 3-second cooldown, and it's his shield. Now, this thing does not break. It can take on any amount of damage, and it's going to block all incoming projectiles, from an Iron Man ultimate to, you know, any raw amounts of damage, a Punisher ultimate, whatever. It doesn't matter. It can absorb any amount, so it's super strong in that regard. It can help your team get out, and oftentimes, if you're trying to zone away these ultimates for your team, you hold up the shield, you let your teammates get to cover, then you slowly get yourself to cover as well, making sure to protect them because your shield is not going to break. In addition to that, it's also going to just randomly delete certain things that touch it. Like if an Onk hits your shield, it's going to just randomly get deleted. So there's some abilities that are like that, where if they touch your shield, they just go away, and it almost like eats projectiles, right? So yeah, super strong. But I will say that one of the biggest mistakes that people make with this is shielding too much. I know that that seems strange, but your job is not to shield your team, to shoot at things. Shield your team so that they can do stuff. Oftentimes, the shield is to protect yourself from abilities and allow you to apply more pressure. So it's one of your forms of mitigation. It's one of the things that allows you to stand in open space or contest objectives. And that means in games that you're actually stomping, you should hardly be using Metallic Curtain, because it's something that you're using to deny certain things and mitigate pressure in certain moments. But you don't want to be holding this up all the time, because then you're not applying pressure. You're not putting your opponents on the back foot. You're not zoning away the enemy team. And this is super important, because a lot of the time, if you are applying no pressure, your teammates will actually take on a lot more damage and pressure themselves, because you're not zoning away supports, you're not denying DPS off angles, you're not outputting pressure that forces them to use resources to keep themselves alive. So yeah, it's a very powerful ability, but please don't misunderstand what this is useful for. Now we got to talk about his ultimate, Meteor M, and this is going to have a 4-second charge up, and it's going to ramp up damage with time. So it's also going to ramp up damage with taking damage, but let's first talk about what it's like when it takes no damage or absorbs no damage. So at about 80%, so 80% of those 4 seconds, so a little bit longer than 3 seconds, you're going to be able to kill 275 HP characters. This is super important because you can kill characters like Luna if you hit them directly. You can kill a lot of different characters as long as they have 275. You can kill them at 80%, a little bit less for 250, a little bit more for 300, but also keep in mind you want a bit of wiggle room in there in case you don't hit them directly, because that's only a direct hit, right? So I would rather have more percentage if my opponent is like really hard to hit, they're moving around a lot, and also it's going to ramp up with damage absorbed. So if you wait for it to go all the way to the end and you absorb a ton of damage, you're going to be able to output a crazy amount of damage with this ultimate, over 500 damage. You could even kill like a Luna Snow ultimate, for instance. But if you're not absorbing enough damage, you're not going to do enough damage to a Luna Snow ultimate, even if you wait out the entire thing and then throw it. Now, you could also use this as a defensive ultimate to deny a lot, and it's super powerful as a pseudo-defensive ultimate to counter most of the Star-Lord ultimate or the Punisher ultimate as an example. But keep in mind, it will pop if it takes too much damage, so you need to throw it before it pops. But because you're absorbing so much damage, you're going to throw a giant chunk of damage. So you could like absorb most of a Punisher ult and then throw it right back at him and kill him. You could absorb like all of a Star-Lord ult and then throw it at a Luna ulting and kill her. So there's a lot of different versatility you have with this ultimate, and it's one of the most powerful ultimates right now in this meta, which is kind of crazy because a lot of people underestimated it before. In addition to that, one of the best strategies right now is a Cloak and Dagger based support comp, either double or triple support, where Cloak and Daggers just get to ult and then Loki copies them and they ult, whatever. But if you pop this ultimate in response to Cloak and Dagger, if you take no damage, then you can just wait for her to be on her third swipe, the end of her third swipe where she stops moving. You just throw it on her, you just kill her that easily. If you take a lot of damage or a reasonable amount, you can actually kill her on her second swipe. But I would say play it safer, kill her on the third swipe most of the time. And it's a really good response ultimate because you just hold it for Cloak and Dagger, you pop it, and then you kill it in response. But it also puts a burden on you at the start of games to farm ultimate as quickly as possible, because the Cloak and Dagger is going to farm their ultimate very fast as well. Now, there is the passive Magnetic Descent that you can just hold spacebar to float down. Not the most useful thing in the world, but sometimes it can be pretty useful in the right situations. It's just good to know that you have it. And then you have a Teamup Metallic Fusion with Scarlet Witch. This is not needed for the character to be good at all. In fact, this character is one of the best characters in the meta right now without this synergy, because Scarlet Witch isn't really played. But it is super powerful. So if you have a Scarlet Witch, you get to like whip out a sword and kill people a lot. So it's nice, but it's not really suggested. Now, here are the 5 tips and mistakes that you might be making on Magneto, tips to dominate in the meta, and mistakes that might be holding you back. The first thing is how to play in the neutral, because the #1 mistake Magneto players are making is that they are constantly poking enemy tanks. There are times and places to poke tanks, typically when you have nothing else that you can fight or shoot at, but most of the time you want to be shooting at supports and DPS at all possible. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but the biggest one is the fact that these characters care about your damage a lot more. We talked about how much damage you output, 75 with the direct hit, and then with your alternate fire, 90. That's a ton of damage, and a Squishy, a character that has 250, 275 HP, they really care about that much damage. It can get them killed, It can, you know, just kill them out of nowhere or force them back. And so they're going to use cooldowns. They're going to run away. They're going to walk back. And that's what you want to do on Magneto. You want to control these players, force them in positions that you want them to be in. So, like, let's just say there's a Hawkeye playing, like, above y'all on a bridge. You poke him, you put pressure into him. That's going to force him back. If you poke at the tank, you're going to do a little damage. They're going to get it healed up. That's not what you want. You want to poke the supports, make them back, round the corner, back away, so now their tanks don't get healed. You want to poke DPS, so they back away. They go back with their team, so they don't have line of sight on yours. You're not focusing on the tank unless the tank is, like, out of position, a tank super weak, or you have teams focusing the tank altogether, which requires a lot of communication. Most of the time, you want to be shooting at anything else, typically DPS and supports. Also, you gotta recognize that Magneto is crazy lethal. Like, especially when you poke a little bit, you apply a little bit of pressure, people aren't getting healed right away. And there's typically a window of time where if you see someone, like, a little low, you crowd control them into the wall with your alternate fire if you have a full 3 bars. And if a teammate follows up, they're gonna do a lot of damage, but then your primary fire is gonna do 75 on top of that. They're being stunned for a second, and they're taking a giant chunk of over 150 damage. That's just insane. In addition to that, if they want to stop you, not only do you have a shield that can protect yourself temporarily, but you have a bubble that can protect you from anything. And if they pop that bubble, or rather do 300 damage to it, you're going to be able to get another crowd control 90 damage. So you can protect yourself from what they're going to do 90 damage twice, and crowd control them twice, plus 2 primaries. It's just so much damage. This is why a good Magneto will not only have low deaths, but extremely high kills and have really high amounts of pressure. Like, you're contributing so much to every team fight, getting picks in the mid fight, denying ultimates. You can really start to see why this character is so meta. Now, speaking of the meta, why does Magneto counter the meta? Why is he so good into this meta, even really better than Doctor Strange? First off, we talked about the cloak ult. It's super easy to shut down every single cloak ult. They pop it, you kill them every single time. That being said, there is layers to this. And if there's a Magneto on both sides, it's your job as Magneto to save your bubble, to bubble your cloak when they ult, because the Magneto's gonna ult them and you could protect them. I know that that's like a lot of layers, but first level is if you just pop Magneto ult in response to cloak ult, you're gonna kill a lot of them past a certain rank. Then when Magnetos get better and cloaks get better, there's going to be some trickery going on where cloaks, like, start their ult really high up. Maybe they even kind of waste it so they run away so they don't die, or their Magneto is playing to bubble them. That's like the second level when people start getting a little better. So if you're already there, you're going to dominate so many players because players are not protecting their cloaks and they're not countering enemy cloaks. Also, just using it defensively, like for Star-Lord ultimates or Punisher ultimates, just being able to eat all that stuff up, including like an Iron Man ult. You can deny the entire thing, get full charge on your ultimate, and just chuck it at a Luna or chuck it at a tank and just do over 500 damage to them, which is going to kill most of them or heavily injure them. And that's a way that you can swing the momentum of a fight in your favor. You know, you're basically trading your ult for their ult plus a kill is just so freaking good, or deny even 2 ultimates with this. That's why it's so freaking strong. In addition to that, you could punish characters like Invisible Woman by popping your ultimate inside their ultimate, especially if they don't have their movement ability. You're still going to be able to kill them because they're not going to get enough HP over health, so you could still just pop them inside their ultimate. They're not really safe in there, and you're safe while you're popping your ult. You're not going to die anything because you're absorbing ammo and damage as they're shooting into you. It's actually making you stronger, so you don't have to worry about being slowed or being alone in there because you're still going to be okay. Also, we talk a lot about Wolverine, and Wolverine is a character that I think warps the meta entirely around him, and he's getting banned a lot at the high levels, but occasionally slips through the cracks. And Magneto is probably the best tank against Wolverine because he can bubble himself, he can protect himself from the Wolverine, he has a form of crowd control, so when the Wolverine comes in, he can boop them away. And as long as you're being really safe with your positioning, you can deal with the Wolverine and not get farmed by a Wolverine nearly as much as other characters or other tanks will. And you're also super good with the Wolverine. Like, bubbling your Wolverine in just gives your Wolverine so much freedom and flexibility. He's gonna absolutely farm. So the combination of enabling one of the strongest characters and being good against one of the strongest characters, this really puts the icing on the cake for one of the strongest characters in the meta right now. Let's talk about strengths and weaknesses of Magneto. First off, the pros. He's great as a solo tank. He might be one of the best solo tanks in the game, maybe the best, so you don't really need a secondary tank. It's nice, but it's not necessary. And because you're so independent, like, you can play a 3 DPS composition, and it's just fine with solo Magneto, which is really cool. In addition to that, his pro is that he can protect against dive DPS, and he's really good at enabling dive DPS, giving a Magic a bubble, a Black Panther a bubble, a Wolverine a bubble. All of these characters get so much value out of these bubbles. It's not just a little bit of value. The difference between getting a bubble and not could be the difference between them killing like 1 or 2 people and living, or just dying with getting no value, which is just wild. Plus, they're going to trigger your crowd control again. So yeah, you just get additional value from that. And overall, he's just a really solid character that plays well in the meta and is very self-sufficient, and you have really high impact. But the cons, first off, is he can't contest height. He doesn't have any form of mobility, so he's not going to be able to jump up on height. This means that if you want to contest a high ground, you're going to need to route there. You're going to need to think about how you're routing, where you're moving to. You don't typically want to fight on the low ground first up to the high ground. You want to go to the high ground directly, force them off of it before you fight them on fair ground. You don't really want to have to shoot up at people. You will, but you would prefer not to. And also, you would prefer to control the direction of combat. Like, while you do have tools to stop one diver, you don't really want people swarming all around you. So, like, you really like playing front to back. You don't really like playing in the middle of something where enemies are like swarming behind you, above you, to the side of you. That's not really the chaotic thing that you'd like to fight. A character like Venom plays really good into that kind of environment. A character like Magneto and even Strange would rather play more front to back. Let's talk about the best synergies with this character. And no, it's not Scarlet Witch. First off is Strange. So Strange is just a really good synergy because y'all can trade out on the front line. Y'all apply a ton of pressure. Y'all both have really powerful ultimates that can either deny enemy ultimates or just win a fight by themselves. Strange, one of the best tanks in the game as well. The TP is very, very good, and retaking point together is really strong there. Plus, his ultimate's great. Your ultimate's great at denying either defensive ultimates or denying offensive ultimates. And yeah, y'all just cycle really well, apply a lot of pressure on the front line, and y'all create like a certain amount of pressure that is really hard to poke through. I think that this is just a very, very solid duo tank. But also, because Magneto is a great solo tank, he actually could play well with any tank. If you have a really cracked tank player on your team, for any other tank, you could play him with Magneto. Whether it's Hulk, whether it's Thor, whether it's freaking Cap, Venom, it doesn't matter, because people that are aggressive, tanks that are aggressive and divey, you can bubble them in, and tanks that play with you are just gonna have, you know, extra amounts of pressure on the front line. So in any world, it's perfectly fine. Now, having characters that apply consistent pressure with you and kind of capitalize on the angles that you're controlling. So one of the jobs on Magneto is you're controlling these angles, right? You see someone go off to like a far left angle trying to get an vantage point on your team. You're going to poke them away, and you're going to control these angles. So a character that can go and take those angles, you know, maybe even someone like Namor or Hela, can be really good as a synergistic pick with you as Magneto. Or even characters like Moon Knight, for instance, I think can be really fine because you're just going to be applying so much extra pressure. And then also characters that synergize with you surprisingly well are characters that are going to get value with your bubble. So like Black Panthers and Wolverines, if these characters can consistently get value every time you bubble them in, then you're just going to be winning fights for free. I mean, everyone knows what it's like to go up against a cracked Black Panther, but one that gets a bubble feels almost uncounterable at times. So that's just one example of a great synergy. Now, number 5 is, what's the difference between a good mag versus a bad mag? What are the easy ways to differentiate them? So a bad mag is probably going to be shielding too much and always on the back foot, never applying pressure to enemies, never poking at enemies, and never dealing damage. They're going to die far too much and not have a good cooldown management cycle. They're not going to read the fight and note the advantage or disadvantage of their team versus the enemy team. Because remember, as Magneto, it's also about reading the room, reading the fight state. So if you're up in numbers, you want to be pressing and applying more pressure. If you're down in numbers, you want to be pulling back, giving space, and either allowing the enemy to overextend or allowing your teammates to pop ults or build ults or get a regroup going. So reading the fight, who's winning, who's losing the fight, that's really, really important. And doing this while you're staying alive, going for a play that might flip that advantage, but still stay alive in the process. And then also making sure that you're not wasting your ultimate. I know that sometimes mags like to just pop your ultimate randomly. I would encourage you not to do that. I would encourage you to find something specifically to give you an indication to pop it. Someone that you can guarantee kill. So like if a Namor pops his bubble, or if you see an invisible one pop or jump or whatever, these are more guaranteed kills that you know you can kill if you pop your ultimate, or use it in response to things. Punisher ultimate, Star-Lord ultimate, Cloak and Dagger ultimate to get even more value. Don't just pop it randomly in the mid-fight for no reason, because most of the time you're gonna be wasting it. You're not getting the full value out of it, and you could actually throw a lot by wasting this super powerful ultimate. Now, if you have any questions about playing Magneto, definitely let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this guide, please smash that subscribe button and let me know down below what other hero guides do you want to see. We haven't done a support one yet, so let me know what support we should do. Anyways, thank you so much for coming by. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.